this work for reparations, and I'm making a statement now. I'm asking a question to you, Jennifer Jones Austin, to be on this committee. There's so many people that say, "Why study? Let's just get to it. Why study? It's just another stall tactic. They're just appeasing us." What do you say to them?
Because as my daddy used to say, and you've heard me say this before, good leaders control for the consequences they intend. Great leaders control for the consequences they intend and the ones they don't. So if
Mm.
we just get to it and we just start handing out checks, the government makes available certain dollar amounts, how do we know if the dollar amount is adequate? How do we know if cash in hand is actually going to reverse all of these harms, all of these injustices, and all of these evils? So, yes, the question of should there be reparations has been studied, but we have not studied what does that look like? We have not connected the dots between what can be done to take us from slavery all the way through the Civil War, all the way through Reconstruction, Jim Crow, bringing it forward to the Civil Rights Movement, and now taking it to these modern day reversals of all the measures put in place. What has to be done to toe the line and make sure, first and foremost, that the systems and the structures are now like rethought, reset, so this doesn't happen anymore. You take the example you just talked about with respect to MWBE. In some ways, some might say that was a form of reparations, right? Making sure that women and that Black and brown persons, men, women, or other, however you identify, would have access. But we see how that's been flipped. We actually see how before it was even flipped. In New York City, as an example, 3% of government contracts in New York City just last year went to Black people. The balance went to white women. So we didn't think about the consequences that could happen that we didn't want to happen, as you said, by putting everybody in one bucket. We've got to study these issues, not whether or not reparations are needed or remedies are needed, but what they need to look like. So that if we don't get another bite at this apple, we've at least controlled for the consequences we intend and the ones we don't.
Jennifer, can you talk a little bit about, and without using too much methodology speak, in some ways, the work that you're talking about is proving a negative. It's how do you prove what didn't happen, right? Because so
Mm-hmm.
much of study is a survey of what did happen and then the effects. So how do you approach that to get to data that is reliable and accurate and helpful?
Mm-hmm. Well, the first thing you have to do is embrace that data comes in two forms: quantitative data and qualitative data. And what we're talking about here is going to be a measure of qualitative data. However, we've got enough knowledge and history and documented history, knowledge, and experience to appreciate what redlining did by way of reducing people's ability to grow equity in their homes. We have enough data that tells us about the experiences of families, and if we come present day, who own homes in certain neighborhoods that are the same square footage, the same type of model, and how they've been undervalued. And you can put quantitative data around that. We can look at going back to like the slavery, and then bringing it forward to the inequitable funding in public schools in predominantly Black communities. We can look at, there's enough for us to tell us how New York State actually grew and was a booming economy because they were involved in the slave trade, the interstate. So we can put numbers on it. Where we're going to struggle a little bit is how does that then attach to individual
Mhm.
Black persons and families? And so we're going to have to figure out how to approximate what that looks like. But there are institutions that do this on a daily. We're going to have to get some support from organizations. An example for you would be, and I'm not saying they're in this, so I haven't talked to them. I'm not trying to do their bidding, but you have, like, say in the United States, an organization named the Urban Institute that is constantly looking at inequities and barriers to opportunity and putting a dollar amount on that, being able to somehow figure out a qualifier and a quantifier for that. So we're going to have to lean into some of that expertise.
Mhm.
What I want people to also appreciate, though, is that it can't just be dollars and cents. We have to undo these structures. The disinvestment, the intentional lack of investment, and then continued disinvestment in predominantly Black communities across the state of New York. The intentional, willful lack of investment and disinvestment in healthcare, in education, in local economies is what has perpetuated this inequity. And then we're also going to have to begin with some I dare I say, assumptions, because they've been borne out. What was the intent of all this to begin with?
Right.
So you have to start there. The
Right.
intent was not just to have Black people, Afro people of African descent enslaved just because. It was to prop up and ensure this ability to grow wealth off of the backs of people you would not pay. So we have to look at it through an economic frame.
Mhm.
And we have to look at how that economic frame was intended to persist, even with the ending of slavery, because the intent here was for some to continue to have. Remember, the United States figured out a way to pay reparations to former slave owners for the slaves they lost. So they figured out how to qualify and quantify. We can do the same. But we have to start with that economic base as the framework, understanding this was not just because, and it hasn't persisted just because. We don't today in New York, in America, allow for predominantly Black communities, the schools in those communities, to receive $23 billion less in funding just because. We know the connection between funding and educational opportunity supports what money buys and then what that results in. So we're going to have to just, what do they say? Follow the money.
Yes.
That's going to
Yes.
be a big part.
Dr. Debbie Turner Bell is here. Jennifer Jones Austin, who has just been appointed to the commission to study reparations in the state of New York. Kathy Hochul signed it into law back in December. The commission's intent to have this. Will an election of a different governor upend your commission? Could the new governor, we only have a couple of minutes, if she's not reelected and there's another person, can this be overturned?
So the commission has to act within the next year. We've got 12 months to put forth recommendations.
Okay.
Now, what you could see happening is if a governor following her, so she's not at risk of being out of office unless she does something. We've had that history with our New York
Right.
State
I was going
governor.
to say.
How
Right.
she got there.
But there's no risk here. And when things are legislated and commissions are put in place, they actually go beyond the elected official. So this is a
Okay, good.
legislated commission. It can't be upended. We just have to center on, once the recommendations come forward, that they are then acted upon and that they're carried out.
And then that's how we hold accountable the people in
Right.
place
And
to
we
make it
as
happen.
people of color can't step away. We
Right.
sometimes step away and don't follow through. We got to
Well,
do
we're
it.
going to follow through here, and I'd like you to check in periodically, not just with this, you're going to check in anyway, but we want to keep up with what's going on the commission, maybe have Dr. Derek Hamilton in as well, and like a
Absolutely.
bunch of other folk. I think Heather, was, oh gosh, I thought I saw her name attached to it too. She's got a
From
great book out,
up in
Color of Change.
yes.
You know what I'm talking about. All right. She's out there as well doing great work. I'm so appreciative that you're in these seats. Couldn't be a better person actually behind the scenes. So
She knows how much I love her and just appreciate and respect all that she does in this space. So that's why she's throwing me this kind of love. I'm
no, I
trying. I'm
thought
trying to do my part.
you earned that, ma'am. I would love you anyway, but you're actually doing the work. So that I'm a little transactional like that as well, because I like people that do things. I don't know. I'm wired that way. I just like people that are doing things to help people, help humanity, and that's always kind of been your thing. Consider It Pure Joy is the book, so get that as well. Jennifer Jones Austin is here through faith. I love you. And Dr. Debbie Turner Bell, Debbie YE, thank you for being here, delivering
Always
a
a
sermon.
pleasure.